The first thing that struck Daniel Hale that morning was how strangely quiet the office felt. The hiring week had drained every bit of his remaining strength, and today, the final interview day, felt like a burden he wasn't ready to carry. He needed someone reliable, someone steady, someone who could help him rebuild the company he had spent years trying to save. But as he walked past the long row of empty chairs and abandoned coffee cups, he felt something heavy tighten inside his chest. Maybe it wasn't the company he needed to rebuild. Maybe it was himself. He didn't want to admit it, but loneliness had been eating away at him for years. The more successful he became, the more hollow everything felt. And today, as he glanced at the final resume in the stack, the one with the odd handwritten note at the bottom that said, "Already married to you," he wondered if he had finally reached the point where nothing surprised him anymore. If you believe in kindness, in unexpected miracles, in second chances that life quietly offers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. The resume belonged to a young woman named Emilia Hart. A simple name, a simple application. No elaborate words, no exaggerated achievements. Just sincerity written in careful strokes, as if each letter mattered. Daniel frowned at the note again, unsure whether it was a joke, an accident, or a mistake on her part. But something about that unusual line tugged faintly at him. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe boredom, or maybe he had spent too long pretending he didn't care about anything. When Emilia walked into the office later that afternoon, the first thing he noticed was how nervous she looked, holding her bag tightly against her chest as if bracing herself for disappointment. Her clothes were neat but slightly worn, her shoes scuffed, and her eyes carried the weight of someone who had fought too many silent battles alone. She apologized for being a few minutes early and sat stiffly, carefully, like she didn't want to take up more space than necessary. Daniel studied her more closely than he intended, not because of her appearance, but because there was something fragile yet determined about her. She wasn't polished like the top candidates he had interviewed earlier, and she didn't try to pretend she was. Instead, there was a quiet bravery in her presence, the kind that only people who had endured hardship carried with them. He began asking questions, expecting short, uncertain answers. Instead, she surprised him with her honesty. She didn't embellish, she didn't hide her challenges. She told him she had worked part-time for years to support her mother, who had been battling a long illness. She told him she had missed out on career opportunities because she had chosen family over ambition. And she told him she didn't regret a single sacrifice. As she spoke, Daniel felt something within him shift. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about numbers or budgets or corporate strategy. He was thinking about her resilience, her sincerity, and the quiet strength she didn't even know she carried. And when she admitted that she almost didn't apply for the job because she felt unqualified, he felt a small ache in his chest, because he could see how much life had taken from her, how much she had given without asking for anything in return. Near the end of the interview, Daniel finally brought up the note. Emilia's face flushed instantly red. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then attempted a shaky laugh. She explained that she had typed the resume on an old laptop she had borrowed. The notes section had started autocorrecting weird phrases because the keyboard was damaged. She had meant to type "already married to work" as a silly line, an attempt to show commitment, but the keys had stuck. She had noticed the mistake after printing it, and the embarrassment on her face now made it clear she had debated not showing up at all. Daniel wanted to laugh, but he didn't. Something about her embarrassment felt too raw, too genuine. Instead, he told her that the strange note had made her unforgettable, and in a week filled with perfect applicants who all spoke the same rehearsed language, being unforgettable was a gift.
After she left, the air in the office felt different, lighter somehow. But the decision wasn't easy. The company was on thin ice financially. He needed someone experienced, someone who could hit the ground running. Emilia was capable, but would the weight of the role crush her? Would it become another burden she didn't deserve? For hours he paced his office hallway, replaying her words, her sincerity, the trembling hope in her eyes. And somewhere deep inside, the memory of his younger self resurfaced, hungry for a chance, overlooked because he wasn't polished enough, dismissed because he didn't come from privilege. He remembered the sting of rejection, the nights he had questioned his worth. And he realized something he hadn't allowed himself to admit. He cared. He genuinely cared whether Emilia succeeded or failed. Days passed before he made his decision, and when he finally called her, the moment she answered the phone, he could hear the trembling breath she tried to steady. He offered her the job. What he didn't expect was the overwhelming silence that followed. Then the soft, choked sound of someone trying not to cry. She kept thanking him, her voice catching each time, as if the call had restored something inside her that life had nearly extinguished. The following weeks brought changes Daniel didn't see coming. Emilia wasn't just hard-working, she was astonishingly dedicated. She stayed late, volunteered for tasks no one else wanted, and treated each responsibility like it mattered. He found himself noticing small things, how she greeted everyone with kindness, how she never complained even when overloaded, how she always asked whether someone needed help. Her presence brightened the office, softened its harsh edges, and slowly began filling the quiet space inside Daniel that he had ignored for too long. People liked her, they admired her, and Daniel found himself drawn to her in ways he didn't want to admit. He watched her smile, watched her persevere through difficult assignments, watched the hope in her eyes rekindle day by day. He tried to stay professional, but there were moments, fleeting, delicate moments, when he wondered what her life was like outside of work. Did she still care for her mother? Did she have friends? Did she feel lonely? Did she ever think of him the way he found himself thinking of her? Still, he kept his distance. She was his employee, and more importantly, she deserved stability, not another complicated burden in her life. Everything changed one late evening. Daniel had returned to the office unexpectedly to retrieve a file. He heard a soft sobbing sound coming from the break room. When he walked in, he saw Emilia sitting alone, her head buried in her hands, shoulders trembling. He froze. She looked small, fragile, shattered in a way he had never seen before. He stepped closer gently and asked if she was all right. Emilia quickly wiped her tears, apologizing over and over, as if her pain were an inconvenience to the world. She told him her mother had taken a sudden turn for the worse, and the hospital bills were piling up again. She said she was doing her best, but everything felt impossible. She didn't ask for help. She didn't expect pity. She simply apologized for crying at work, as if she had no right to feel overwhelmed. Something inside Daniel broke at that moment. He sat beside her, offering the quiet support of someone who understood hardship too well. He didn't promise impossible solutions, but he offered reassurance she had never been given. And for the first time, Emilia allowed herself to lean on someone else. She cried without holding back, cried for years of exhaustion, sacrifice, and unspoken fear. And Daniel stayed beside her long after her tears slowed. After that night, something shifted between them. Their conversations grew warmer, their smiles lingered longer, their eyes met with unspoken connection neither dared to name. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was simply two lonely souls learning to breathe again in each other's presence. Then came the day everything changed. Emilia's mother passed away quietly in her sleep. When Daniel heard the news, he left a meeting midway, drove to her home, and stood by her side when she felt the world crumble beneath her feet. She clung to him like a lifeline, and he held her as if he had spent years waiting to protect her even before he knew her.
People at the office started noticing the connection, the way Daniel's eyes softened when he looked at her, the way Emilia smiled differently when he walked into the room. Rumors began spreading quietly, but neither of them acted on the feelings blooming inside them. They simply cared, deeply, quietly, beautifully. One evening after work, while they sorted documents together, Emilia found the old printed résumé Daniel had kept. She laughed at the infamous note and teased him about saving it. Daniel told her the truth, that the ridiculous line had changed the course of both their lives. She read it again. Already married to you. And suddenly the room felt still. Not because of the mistake, but because the phrase no longer felt absurd. It felt like a prophecy, an accidental glimpse of a future neither dared to speak aloud. They didn't confess that night. They didn't have to. Some connections grow in silence until they are undeniable. Months passed, and the company flourished. With Emilia's help, Daniel rebuilt more than his business. He rebuilt himself. He found purpose, warmth, and hope in a world he once viewed through cold distance. Their first confession came softly, naturally, during a quiet evening at the end of a long day. And their first real embrace felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Their love wasn't dramatic or loud. It was gentle, healing, honest, built on vulnerability and shared strength. And when Daniel finally proposed to her years later, he did it by handing her a brand new résumé printed on flawless paper. At the bottom of the page, under the notes section, he had written, "Now I'm the one already married to you." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more stories that reach people when they need them most. Before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe love can find us through accidents we never expected?